Welcome back.
Okay, we are back. I'm going to move my head. Do you know, I've always felt that the Egyptians? The
Walk
Egyptians
like the
all had really good neck movements. Why did they, some people, like if you go to South America, they've got good hip movements. Egyptians
hips.
had good, they could move from the hips, whereas the Egyptians moved from the neck. Okay, so all right, we were going to go. Let's go straight into what we're going to talk about, which is we're going to talk about Jordan Peterson, who's been your go-to guy lately. You've been going to him quite a bit in our messages because we message each other quite a bit, and you're quite impressed with Peterson and his views. He's quite an intense guy when he speaks.
He is.
Like when he speaks, he's like, you know, you know, you know, you know, and then
Man,
he'll give you some really good little clear thing about, some aspect in the world to look at. He's actually pretty good.
he
So
is
anyway,
he is an intense individual. I have to give him that.
yep, and we spoke. We touched on him, and I really enjoyed some of those YouTube clips that you'd sent to me.
Mm-hmm.
I
I'm glad.
like his views. He tells you he tells you, wait a second, just question things a little bit. Don't be too, because I'm a bit of a left wing guy, and I took a not a moral compass. What was it? A political, like, where do I sit with my political views? Am I a left wing, right wing guy? And how far off Gandhi am I? I'm not that far off Gandhi. I'm a bit of a Gandhi kind of left wing guy. I wish I
Yeah.
wasn't. I wish I was a little bit more right wing. I think Peterson might be a little bit more right wing than.
He is right wing. Because I
Mm.
had the same thing. Can you see that now? Am I searching? What am I showing you? Anyway, if I do this,
Okay.
this is
By the way,
this the
why
one? Go on. My Bible.
political compass? Yeah, not moral. Did I say moral compass? Did I say moral? Because I was meaning political. It's not that much difference, I guess, being your moral compass or your political compass. But where you sit, did you do the test? Did
I
you sit
did.
that test? Really good questions. I was like looking at that, thinking, "Wow, this is perfect for an English class." Like
I actually did it in
answering some of
English.
these.
I
Did you?
should have given this. This was one of my best lessons. Was this one and another one, but this one for the high level. And I remember my my best feedback from my students were that's a really good lesson, or even you could break it up into multiple lessons.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easily. Yeah. So yeah, as far as Pedersen goes, so it'd be interesting to. I haven't checked where he stands, his moral compass is, but political compass is, I should say. But yeah, that's what I did, and they're the results that I got.
Oh, you got them there, have you? You're going
I
to
don't
show.
have them in front of me, but I
Okay.
did them at work today. I saw that message that you gave me on the political compass, and so I decided to take the. It was like a little questionnaire. It was 6 pages worth. There must have been 30 odd questions at least. And then at the end of it, you get a where you sit, which, there was no surprises. I kind of know where I am. There's no like, wow, I'm left wing. There's none of
Where,
that.
where are you on? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, but I've only got a black line. I can't see anything else except
Oh,
for a
hang on.
white line in a black screen.
Oh, that's no good. What did I do wrong there?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. What about this one?
But I can find it. It's in a.
Because I'm close to 72. Actually, I'm a little bit more libertarian. That's interesting. 2017 is quite leftish. Oh, these are where the parties are. This isn't necessarily who's in power. Okay, so that's where the Labor has gone from authoritarian, quite authoritarian, and to the right in 2010 to way down in the libertarian left in 2017.
Mm.
Interesting. The Liberals, Democrats, they were, well, even in 2005, they were quite libertarian. But they've crept back into the blue zone.
Yeah.
Have you got yours there?
Yeah, I've got mine in front of me.
Do you want to share?
Yeah, okay. Let me share. Let me share and care. That's what the football coach said to me when I said that. Share and care. When you get the ball, share and care.
Share and care. So was it handball and then shepherd? Is that what he meant by the care? What was the care?
That's right, yeah. So when you get the ball, share it with your teammates and care. We share and care. That's our motto. That's our philosophy. That's how we play the game, because it's a dangerous game. And if you don't share and care, then you're not caring for your teammate, and he's going to get injured. He's going to get hurt. It's going to be your responsibility to care. Now I'm trying to get over to sharing my screen, which would be
speaking of sharing and caring, I care, mate.
Sharing.
I hope you get through this sharing your screen ordeal.
Yeah, okay, now I've got to go back here, and I've got to go to invite mute. Oh, geez, I was doing it before. How about I go onto the big screen? Does that make share screen? It's just straight there. Okay.
Straight there, mate.
I don't know. Yeah, it was like in front of me. There we
go.
Can you see
down
me
the bottom, green.
Can you see me now? Okay,
Cogito. Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, we're very similar, you, me, and Roscoe. I used to be a lot more libertarian, and I think I was a little bit more left than that before, like 10 years ago. But I've come closer to the centre.
Do you know what I think? I think it was just those specific questions, those 30, 40 odd questions. I think that any reasonable person would end up in the same spot. I think that,
I don't reckon.
You
reckon? So, I sent it actually to Peterson today. Speaking of Peterson, I sent him that. On Twitter, I tweeted him and said, "Hey, have you done this? Because I'm been interested to see where you plot." And I actually said, "I'm surprisingly still left. I'm still quite left, because I thought, like you said, he's been an influence, quite a big influence on me recently. I thought that I would have gone to the right, because he's really scared me about mostly totalitarianism, but he's really scared me about socialism. He really has scared I thought he'd scared the whole left out of me. But according to that compass, no, I'm still quite a significant lefty. I'm still quite in that green zone that you're in. So that was interesting that could be another reason why we get on quite well. But like you said, yeah, I'll be interested. I want to meet some people who are in the purple and the blue, because if you look at the political parties, they're all in the blue. I'm going to rip yours off, mate. That's ripped off. So yeah, this is the English UK national parties: Conservative, Labor and Liberal. So Liberal Democratic, I'm not really sure. I guess that's kind of, yeah, Liberal and Libertarian, because they're all on the right here. The Conservative, that would be our Liberal Party or the Republican Party in America. And Labor, it's interesting how Labor's gone truly, socialist in a way, back in 72 and in 82. And then they've jumped over here and gone quite totalitarian in a way, back in 2010. Then came back a little bit in 2015, and boom, they're back here in the libertarian left now, which is quite surprising. But yeah, I think if you look at America and Australia, they're pretty much all in this blue zone here up here. So that some people argue that the centre has moved. That I think it's Noam Chomsky talks about that. He goes, if you're a centrist in modern day times in 2017, then you're actually quite a right winger, because the centre has moved to the right, which shows here. So, yeah. So yeah, I did see that. Well, that where I plotted was similar to the Greens. The English Greens. So I dare say the English Greens are pretty similar to the Aussies. Yeah, I was pretty close to here, I think.
Where are you, by the way? Which?
Yeah, I'm not on this.
You're not on that, but you're down, aren't you? I thought I saw yours today. You're in there.
Yeah, I got it on Viber, but I haven't hooked up my Viber to my
Okay.
computer. You're quite advanced on that, mate.
Yeah.
It's a good idea because do you type your Viber on your computer, on your keyboard, or on your phone mostly?
On my phone.
On your phone, yeah, same.
Yeah.
But it's
I just have it there on the computer, but I have to kind of like boot it up each time I use it.
gotcha.
And, yeah, but what's the deal? Yeah, Viber is it's amazing how much I use Viber. And, when I'm messaging, you and Ross, like all day at school, like even, I don't know how, talking about moral compass.
Yeah.
I don't know how moral this is, but I often check messages during classes. And
it's just too interesting not to, isn't it?
yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'll just check my mobile phone. And when I look up, I notice that all the students are doing the same thing. I put my phone down and they all look at me and then put theirs down. Like, so, okay. I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. You're okay with that? I'm okay with that. Yeah, we're all okay. Do you know, I think that, because we live in the day, with this day and age, we got to multi-skill. We got to get messages to each other. We got to do things. Hey, worst case scenario is they take a video of you.
Oh.
They take a video of you. And do you know what? Even if they do, they put bunny rabbit ears and like little things on you, whiskers and stuff like that on you. And your students, they send you like messages with pictures of you with all bunnies and all this stuff all over you, and it's a sign that they actually like you. And
yeah,
it's the modern day teacher. You've got to be able to have a few bunny ears on you and stuff, and just laugh it off.
you've got to roll with the bunny ears.
You got to roll. You got to roll with the punches, and that's the modern day punches. Back when we were at school, like kids would write little messages, right? Like little messages to each other and pass notes in class.
Yeah.
And draw pictures of the teacher. You draw pictures of the teacher and you might like put ears on him or something, like, or, put a space suit on him or whatever. And like, look at this space cadet teacher. And you'd pass it to your mate or whatever, or put him in a football uniform, I bet he barracks for Collingwood or something, you know what I mean? And, then pass it to your mate, and your mate would have a giggle, put it in his pocket, and that would be a little laugh for the day, right? But now they're taking quick pictures of you, selfies with them in the back, with them in the background.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to Peterson.
Right, but I'm dying to tell you, this is the most exciting thing that came across my desk today. Did you see this?
Pyramids, big void. What's this grand gallery?
They have found this is a new empty space in the Great Pyramid. And there's another one down here as well. It could be here. I'm not sure.
Okay, there are 3 pyramids, big ones, in Egypt, from what I understand.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
This is it's Khufu.
Okay.
So this is the one near the city. So the city's down here.
Right.
This is the one that's closest to the city. I think they call it, this is the grand one, but it's got a different name. And then there's that are aligned with the Orion's belt. But yeah, this little zone here is a brand new. They said this is the biggest discovery inside of the pyramids in 100 years. And how they did it was bounce cosmic rays. They did all this cosmic thing to work out this void. That's why they're not exactly sure what shape it is, but it's at least 100 foot. So I guess that's 30 meters. Is that only 30 meters? That's got to be bigger than that. Don't quote me on the dimensions. But yeah, it's pyramid Scan is the name of the dudes. It's a big void. And what's exciting, Walshy, is you see, oh, what have I done? There we go. See these shafts that go out like boom, boom, boom. They're supposed to, or the theory is that this is where their souls, the pharaoh's souls, would get shot out of those shafts at a certain time to go to the galaxy that's aligned with those shafts at the time. Like there's a lot of like really amazing geometry and astronomy with these things. So yeah, this is interesting. What blows me away is if that's a straight line, that would have been pretty hard to do as well. Is if that's a big void there, like they did with the gallery here, that shaft went through the grand gallery, but it stops. Okay, but this one goes straight through that void and goes through. So anyway, that's what come up today. Everybody's talking about it. Russia Today, BBC, biggest thing in 100 years. Quite exciting. What do you make of it?
I've never been to Egypt, but I'd love to go, and I would. It's actually one of my to-go places. I've always wanted to go, Israel, Egypt, and I really want to see the pyramids. I want to be able to sit down. I want to walk up them.
Can you?
I want to know what's inside. I believe.
Oh, you want to go inside? I want to go inside too. I'd like to go in that.
Yeah,
in this.
If you can go inside.
You know, and when I was a kid, when I learnt this in history or whatever it was, I remember thinking, why is this gallery, this was like the grand tomb. I was thinking, I didn't like how it was offset. It wasn't in the middle. I thought, why wouldn't you build it like this one right up the guts? And now that they've found this void, I feel better because it's kind of like a matching set. There's that one and that one. I feel better about it now because they couldn't because they had this void there. But anyway, so yeah, that's something that's just hasn't sat right with me since I was a kid.
Well, just apart from the pyramids, you said something else that was really interesting not too long ago before we started up. You were talking about the bees.
The bees.
You were talking about how the bees. You said if they become extinct, that was actually quite a significant comment to make. That if bees become extinct, then we are next. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, bees. I think it was Einstein.
Was that Nostradamus or was that Einstein? Was it? Okay, so that was a.
No, I think it was Einstein. I think he'd just done the maths. I'll just Google it here. Yeah. Bee extinction. There we go. Yeah, I think it was Einstein that said that if the bees go, we humans would be 5 years after.
Wow. And
I think it's around about 80% is of all our crops. There's like a vast majority. Like there's so many different fruits and vegetables that rely on bees to pollinate them. So
yeah, right.
So here we go. 70%. Out of 100 crop species that provide us with 90% of our food, 70% are pollinated by bees. Oh my goodness. So 30% no worries. But like I remember looking at the what would be left as far as what we'd have left to eat. And there wasn't too many sweet ones. There wasn't too many tasty variety morsels. So I think we would be foregoing a little bit on tasting that. So yeah, well, right now, me and consortium, or quite a few different companies, are going for a grant, Australian. It's a Queensland grant, Queensland government grant. Queensland grants have been amazing in the last two to 3 years. Queensland is definitely leading the country as far as business grants and scientific grants. It's quite an exciting time to be in the grants business. So yeah, we're looking at a solution where we can deliver bees temporarily to, let's say, mango farms, or well, there we go, cabbage, apple, almond, artichoke, some of these farmers, and they would rent the hives of us. We would put them in self-contained units that have that, because right now there's other companies that do it, but they get problems with green ants or insects, and cane toads in Queensland is a big problem. I don't know why, but they do some damage on these bees. So we've got a solution that mitigates those pests and those the losses that you sustain from those issues, those pests. And quite exciting. And then like Einstein said, if they go, we go first, because there's a lot of bees that are on the way out. There's lots of mass deaths of bees. I think So, and just giving you a stat I'm in Far North Queensland in Cairns. So I think it's 14% of mango trees up here are pollinated by bees, compared to 40% in other areas. So there's obviously something wrong there. The native bees are okay, but their range isn't very good. Native bees are very, very small, and they only have a range of I think it's only a couple of 100 meters, compared to bumblebees, our honeybee friends, who can their range is of over 1,000 meters, I think. So it's quite exciting. I hope we get the grant and we can do some test cases and expand out, and we can help the bees out and maybe help out the humans as well.
Yeah, well, if we want to eat all those blackberry, raspberry, carrots, and all those other good little broccoli and all those good little things that we like to have. Otherwise, a curry without broccoli is a little bit like,
Oof.
you want a bit of that,
Imagine
meat, potato, and could I get some carrots? Sorry, no more carrots.
No carrots. No tea.
No tea.
No watermelon. No mangoes. Passion fruit.
Watermelon.
Raspberry.
Watermelon's pretty good at cricket, with some of, you get some watermelon out, like little tea, it's tea break. There's no tea break.
No tea break.
Watermelons at tea break during the cricket.
Yep.
We're going to have to change the cricket break from tea break. We have to change it. So if you go to the cricket, they're going to say, okay, we're going to drinks, or it's tea. It's like, no, we're not going to. We're just going to have not a squash either. No mango, no cherry, no celery. Do you know what we're going to do? We're just going to gather together and drink water. No flavour. We don't have any flavour at all. Unless you want to, come up with some other fact. I'm sure, like, there'll be some famous person. There'll be some person who'll come up with something else. Some sort of like, you won't believe it's not blueberry.
You couldn't have a coffee break in cricket. It couldn't be a coffee break. It's just not cricket.
Let's go for coffee. Yeah, you can't play cricket and say, come on, guys, let's just have a coffee and then we'll get back into a game. It's no, this doesn't work at all. Not at all. By the way, I loved going to the Boxing Day test with you last year.
Ooh.
And we
that was a ripper.
Kernahan.
Sticks Kernahan.
It was the cricket. Sticks Kernahan popped up and Sticks Kernahan said, "Can I get you another midi?" to his mate, and walked past us. He walked past us. He was a big unit.
He's a big unit.
I reckon. Yeah, I reckon he could still play.
Yeah,
he's still got a little bit of footy in him. There's a little bit of Kernahan in us all. There's a little bit. I reckon he's still got a little bit in him. Seriously.
He looked fit. He looked pretty fit. He was in thongs and shorts, so he looked
comfortable as well.
He did. Yeah. I think he was. He looked like he'd been keeping the rig active.
By the way, I wonder if Jordan Peterson, if he came and started watching an Australian rules football game, if he would come in and have something inspirational to tell the players.
I reckon he would.
Do you think? Do you think an academic could go out of the books, go out of the socials, like Noam Chomsky, Pedersen? Do you think these guys could come into a football team and say, do you know what, I've been watching the game, guys, and I just think that if we just play the percentages on this level, you know, could an Einstein, could they be geniuses in different ways, you know, and be it?
I think he could. Because what I get out of him is about just you define what success is. You define what your life is as far as meaning goes, or just far as whatever it is. And he basically says that the key to a fulfilling life or a good life of avoiding needless suffering, I think. And because he says it's a really, really Buddhist thing, because I like how he's touched on Eastern philosophy as well as Western. He goes, life's suffering. I mean, life is tragic. You know, all the people you're gonna, like there's having some sort of. He doesn't want to use the meaning, because he talks about if you want a meaningful life, that's another thing. And he goes, people would say they want a meaningful life, but really that is a big commitment as well in itself. But just having something where you can avoid needless suffering, he goes, you just pick up. It's about responsibility, and it's about having a crack. So I think that's what he could help. Let's say a disgruntled player who isn't getting the minutes. So because I've been following the NFL season this year, and I'm like, there's rumblings because he's not getting enough minutes, but the team's winning, and they're top three, like they're a crack at a championship. You know, I guess it's funny. They also talk about that as when you're at different ages, you've got different motivations. So when you're a rookie, first couple of years, you just want a game. You don't care. You just want a game. Then when you get through the middle, you want a star, and I guess you want more accolades, and you maybe want more respect, and you want to earn that respect. And then when you get into your veteran years, which around that late 20s and into after that, you just want championships. You just want flags. You want the group to win. So I guess actually that makes sense now. These rumblings from these 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds who are very, very talented and would be, superstars. They would probably be the number one receiver or forward in a different team, but they're down sort of third wide receiver. I think he could get into their heads and go, look, this is good, man. Just don't let the fame and don't let anybody get in your own head. When you like when you finish your career, that's nothing that's good at having past players and coaches being past players, because you're going to listen to them because fuck it, I know what you did. That's the thing. But the dude could come in and maybe talk some sense into them. But would you listen? That's the other thing. While she is, I remember when I was in my early 20s, would I listen to a Jordan Peterson? Would I see the brilliance? Would I see the wisdom? Maybe, but probably not. That's another thing too, is would it resonate? I think it does. I mean, no, I think I'm selling him a little bit short. Like, I think he's freakishly good. And he does, I think he does say that predominantly his audience is young men in their 20s. So yeah, I'd say he could probably help an Australian rules football team at the elite level or at any level.
Do you think he would say, you haven't had a kick for 3 weeks. If you don't get a kick out there today, if you don't dominate, we're going to drop you and you're not going to play in the finals. Do you think he's going to say that to a player? Because that was pretty much what coaches said to.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't, because I've been consuming him a lot, and he says he's very agreeable. And you need a disagreeable person to say that. And he said he's got a friend who's very disagreeable and is very good at firing people. And the dude loves it. How's that? He loves going in. He's one of these toe cutters that go in and go, you don't even need those 5 people. Let's just get rid of them. And he actually enjoys going in and going, your game's up. Pack your stuff and fuck off. You've had a good run. Now go and do it somewhere else. And he actually enjoys saying that to him. Very disagreeable. He said it's the other end of the spectrum. So with Peterson, he seems like a pretty gruff or not gruff, but if that's the right word, but he seems like quite a disagreeable person who'd be like, whoa, in your face. But he says he's not. He just is passionate, and when he knows his stuff, he articulates it well.
That's a big thing, isn't it? To be able to articulate what you're saying,
He's
what you
elite.
want to say, to be able to just, because you see coaches like I actually, I like going out to 3/4 time huddles.
Me too.
Listening to the guy, I really like. Do you remember that we went to the Richmond Collingwood 3/4 time huddle, and there was
that was great.
Yeah,
I was feeling that we couldn't get in and listen to it. I wanted to really get in there.
Really good at listen, but I did listen to him a bit. I could kind of like catch him just, moving some things on a board and just, moving some plays around. And McAllister, I think his name was. Anyway, I can't think of it. I could be wrong. Anyway, he looked like he was part of a team. Looked busy. They look busy. I'm busy. I'm about to give my speech. I'm about to give my thing. There's crunch times. So they've got a really short period of time to articulate their message clearly. And they've got like a plan that they've been doing all year. And then they've got their instincts that are telling them to, do I want to do this? And then they've got to think, wait a second, what works for each single person out there? Like I know, all these players have got different, they've got different ways of speaking to each different person. Like he may speak to one guy, like just give him a finger. You know what I want from you, and that's all I need to say to him. And then the next guy, I need to sit him down and explain to him piece by piece. I want you to put your head over the ball, run the lines, run into position, get front and square. Make sure when you pick it up, then you got to dish it off. All of those things. He's got to, he's got to work out how to speak to everyone. Like the coach has to do that,
especially nowadays.
Yeah, and if you lose your temper, there's a big there's a revolt against you, and you're going to lose your job. So you can't lose your temper. Now you can't lose your temper, but if you do, hey, that could be passionate. Maybe it's good to lose your temper. I don't know. Try the opposite. Don't lose your temper, and then last. Maybe, like when you're 10 goals up, lose your temper then. It's like, what's he losing his temper for? We're 10 goals up. It's like, cool, he means business. Do you know what I mean? We better listen to him. It's interesting. Because you follow Geelong. So you've got Scotty. You've got Scotty, who's always, he looks like he could lose it. He could lose it, on the odd occasion. He sometimes thumps the desk. He does that.
He does.
You never hear him. He thumps the desk, but he doesn't.
He does those ones in the box.
Yeah. He doesn't like when the umpire gives a decision that that doesn't quite go their way. He doesn't say, geez, you could think about that or we could analyze that next time. He really does he gives you the impression that that was a wrong decision made by the umpire. Do you know what? He should actually, rather than thump the desk, he should have a sign that says, I thought that was the wrong decision. Just put that up. Thought that was the wrong decision. Didn't say anything. Just put up a sign. I thought that was the wrong decision. I didn't say it was the umpire. Could be a different decision that I'm talking about. And just put that up. It's really interesting, like what coaches will do. Like, there's going to be new tactics. Do you know what I mean? Like there could be, I think with coaching, it's going to be, there's going to be new tactics that are used.
I remember seeing John Longmire in that Sydney Geelong, not prelim, semi, where it's got us in the prelim against Crows. And in that first quarter, he's like, like he's just absolutely, he covered his mouth, because he was just going sick. And it was like he knew. It was like he's like, whoa, this is not good, because it was just a run on we got. But anyway, sorry, okay, you were going to talk about tactical changes.
Well, I think the address to the team, I think that's almost old hat. Soon, like I think in the next year or two, they'll come out like with the board, with the team places, and they'll have just a screen. Here, look at this play. This is what they're doing. And they're just going to show little, okay, quickly show the screen. Look, this is how they're running the ball out. You've got to be aware of this, and this. And the players have got to actually sit down, and they're just going to go over like the plays, what's happening. It's not going to be so emotional like the coach saying, guys, give me what you've got. It's going to be more, look, watch this. Okay, let's rewind it. And they'll just have like, it'll be literally 30 seconds of, a certain play. They'll talk about it, and then they may just split up into their groups. And each division, each line coach will have, okay, this is what they're doing. This is how they're changing. This is how to, counteract that. And they may even have like somebody in the background who's got editing with all the different files of games and say, this is what, a different player did last week on him. Let's have a look here. So if you've got a Buddy Franklin kicking 10 goals, this is how to counterbalance. This is where he's going to run to. Look, 2 weeks ago, this is how Hawthorn covered that. This is what they did. They dropped a man back here. Look, they dropped a man back here. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to do this role. You're going to do that role. So it's going to be more clearer. The instruction's going to be more clearer with screens. It's not going to be verbal where, like there's 100 people, like there's 100 people in a group, with all the trainers, there's 20 people and there's all the, the other teams over there. It's going to be more, boom, we've got an iPad, a 30-inch iPad that someone's got like that. And it's just going to be, let's have a look at that. Stop, pause, straight. Okay, we got that. So it's going to be much more visual.
I think they might. I know they do that on the sidelines of. I think I've seen it in the NBA, in basketball, and I've definitely seen it in the NFL. I might have seen it in Townsville when Geelong come and played. They always come up and usually Geelong, Gold Coast usually play a game, pre-season game in Townsville. I think I saw them. No, I'm not sure actually, but I know they did have. There was I think assistant coach down there that had a connection. Because you know how they look at. They've got screens now on who's been on and off, like how they've got that.
Yeah.
Because they only want sort of 8 minutes for each midfielder, and then they've got to come and take a rest. So I think they have that. But yeah, actually seeing each play. Yeah.
And then if you've got a game like AFL, what they'll have is right, you've got your motivation coach. So as soon as halftime comes along, okay, just sit with your motivational guy. So it's not going to be so much, you may just have 5 minutes where a guy is looking at you and he's just going to say, right headspace, get right into the right headspace, switch off. You know what to do. Now it's up to you to, and just somebody talking to you, like getting back into the right frame of mind, and then just switching on and getting ready, because it seems to be so much momentum and just positional changes. Like, how can a team like Carlton beat Greater Western Sydney with all those champions by 1 point and finish, and they're finishing on such different levels, there's not that much in the competition. So it's all these little things there. We're going to move forward. It's going to be it's going to be interesting what happens. And, and what happens on the sporting field happens in real life, they say. So
okay,
whatever's happening, whatever you see in sports games, you're going to see that coming into your normal life.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's we were always told that when we played footy, the older blokes always said, whatever you do out here, it's going to reflect on your life. It's going to, all your job, everything you do, it's going to reflect there. So if you're a quitter, you're going to quit in life. So get out there and make sure this becomes your standard, the way you think. And it was actually pretty good advice, like some 35-year-old guy who's at the end of his career, or who's basically can't run around anymore because his legs have gone, but he's still got it up here. Just because his legs are gone doesn't mean up here's gone.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys who are a part of sporting clubs, they're actually still heavily motivated, but their bodies they just can't keep up with what's going up there. So they look right. Well, they've got to pass on some of that knowledge that they've got. And if you're a 21-year-old guy who can run 20 kilometers without and get up the next morning and do it again, like when you're 35, you can't do that. If you run, if you are on an on-ball position or a midfield position, if you in whatever you play, if you're running, the next day you wake up, you've got to recover. Sometimes it could take you 3 or 4 days. So that's, it's just, it's interesting where we're going. By the way, we did mention about coaches, and we were mentioning about some inspirational. Was there did you ever have a coach that gave you that little bit extra, that just gave you were like, do you know what? I'm going to just come up with the goods now that this guy said that to me. Has that ever happened to you?
Probably Kevy Wilson. I remember Kevy Wilson said he held onto the ball when I got the absolute snot knocked out of me as a rookie. I went, all right, that's all I got to do. Just make sure I don't drop the ball. That was where I probably gained respect from my teammates, but whether it wasn't something. It was maybe inspirational in a way that he's like, hey, you held on the ball, good on you. And that was, but it was really like, yeah. It's a bit like how it's just different in AFL. You don't really have maybe wingers a little bit, but in rugby, the forwards look down on the backs and they're like, yeah, you guys don't work hard, because the forwards do a lot of violence. They do a lot of the stuff that we look at, a lot of collisions, where the backs score all the. It's a bit like I guess it's kind of forwards and backs opposite in AFL, in Aussie rules, where the backmen do a lot of work and the midfielders do a lot of work, and then the forwards get the glory. But so maybe that was that was that feeling, because he was a big dude. As far as coaches, I don't think I really had too many really good coaches, actually. I'm trying to think. I found something I think that Jordan Peterson might get through to a player. Everything you need is right there, and it's the stuff you should.
Existence is right in front of you, and it manifests itself as all things should do, but you're avoiding. Okay.
So there could be something. If there's anything, he goes, that's easy to find. You can think of the things, procrastination, things you don't work on hard. So as a player, it could be fitness, it could be conditioning, it might be defensive skills, it could be tactical knowledge of their opponent. Unlike your Harry Taylors or maybe your Alex Rance, these masterful tacticians. Students of the game. Harry Taylor just has an absolute blueprint for every single, and then he'll keep notes after each contest, after each game, on that player. Be like, oh yeah, cool. And he's such a student, cognac sipping, military geek sort of guy who's into that. So not everyone's like that. So they could be doing more research on their opponent, but they'll be able to identify that. So that's maybe something. On Peterson, this is what made him. This is what he's big on, which has really hit home for me, is the importance of freedom of speech. It's something, and it's something that's resonated with me, because I've always felt that often when it comes to equality or discrimination, sometimes we focus on things that don't matter so much, and whether it's chairperson rather than chairman or something like that, where I think it's actually empowering for a woman to hold a position that has traditionally been a man's thing, rather than have to call her a chairperson. I'd rather say she's the chairman, you know, which carries a long history. So for me, I think it's more respectful to give them that title. But so yeah, there's just been little things. So and now I saw some statistics yesterday or this week that 3 out of every 4 conservative Americans don't talk about their political views, because there's such a left-wing liberal dominance in society and the media. And I've actually tested that too. So personally, like, you have to, a lot of people are saying that there's not this political correctness is stopping conversations that need to be had. And that's the big thing that Peterson says. He goes, you don't want to stop people talking, no matter how crazy they are, no matter how extreme, no matter how hateful, and no matter how offensive, and no matter how scary, is you want to let them speak, because then you know who they are. And also you have a chance to talk with them. You know, you have a chance that maybe they'll get some feedback, and maybe they'll go, hang on a minute, maybe I should question these beliefs, or just go through it. Because if what we've got now is people, they don't talk and they go underground. And that's more dangerous. It's much more dangerous to have extremists going underground. As we see, I'm the same with drugs. I think that all drugs should be legal, and we can tax them, and we can deal with the treatment of them and the enforcement and that sort of thing from those taxes, rather than then take the distribution out of criminals' hands and put them into, you know, even a publican. But, you know, probably better to be a pharmacist. But yeah, so this is something that's really resonated with me. And I was sympathetic to socialism, and I was sympathetic to the left, and people like Noam Chomsky, who's an anarchist. And I had actually spoken with some, I think they were anarchist socialists in Melbourne. One of their ideas, which was really resonated with me, was, well, what if instead of paying people the dole, why don't we subsidize businesses to take on those people who can't get work for whatever reason, and they have to pick a job? It's like, what do you want to do? What are you good at, and what do you want to do? Oh, well, I'm not bad at this, and I want to do that. Okay, cool. You get a job there. And what happens is the government subsidizes the company to increase capacity, which might not be profitable for them. Because have you seen there's a profit maximization point? I remember studying that in economics. Once you get to a certain amount of production, your profit you'll still get profit, but it'll diminish as your production increases. So they were arguing, just saying, look, well, let's go past that profit maximization point, and anything, you know, they get tax breaks or something like that, and perhaps we could have full employment. Now, I have heard some counter arguments about, well, you know, what about the people that got the job on merit? And I said, well, you could pay them more. You know, I'm sure there's ways around it. So I have been sympathetic to these anarchists and these socialists, but Jordan Peterson's really done a really good reminder of how good we have it in democracies, how good capitalism is. And even now, I think one of the stats he said I saw yesterday was 250,000 people a day are getting lifted out of abject poverty around the world. And every day there's 300,000 people get connected to the power grid. That's unprecedented. That's amazing achievement in lowering poverty. But we don't talk about that. We talk about wealth gaps and stuff like that, which are real things, but that's something to be optimistic about, and that's something to be positive about, and say, hey, you know, sure, we have lots of problems, but look at what we've been able to achieve. And that's been a really inspirational message I've got from him, to be grateful and to go, okay, it's not perfect, and there's things that we can fix, but it's pretty good, and it's never been as good. This is another one thing here too, is, I don't know if this is, he actually, what I've learned about this is, he talks about it with himself. He did this himself. He found that he had a voice in his head, which was perhaps his conscience, which was saying when he would speak, he would say, "You don't believe that. You're just trying to win an argument by saying that. That's not true. You're not speaking your truth there." And he's like, "Well, what is this?" So he thought, okay, well, why don't I experiment and just do what that conscience or whatever that voice says? And he said that 95% of what he was saying was just crap. Was just to manipulate other people to win arguments and to get what he wanted. They weren't necessarily lies, but he said that's what he said. So he did that, and he said that's it's a scary thing to do because it doesn't leave you with much. And then he said, yeah, it leaves you. But he said if that 5% is solid, that's a good thing to build around. And I that's something I've noticed too in myself and others, where we kid ourselves and we just say whatever we need to say in order to survive or in order to try to thrive in a certain environment. So that's something that's something that I haven't been courageous enough to do, but I'm trying. I have tried to get rid of some of this dead wood, and sometimes it doesn't bring good outcomes. This is another one. This is where he got really famous. This guy blew up. He wasn't very famous until late last year, and now he's everywhere. And this was what happened this was an event. I think it was unfortunate what he's wearing. He looks kind of like a 1930s German. I think with his suspenders and stuff. I don't know. He doesn't usually. Sometimes he wears quite relaxing stuff, but here he looks. I don't know. Just the outfit was, I think, unfortunate. But I mean, this lady and this transgender person was really trying to say what they're trying to get is where he just said enough is enough, or where he said I have to speak out was these new pronouns, like not Miss, Mrs. and Ms. and Mr. These other new ones like Z and Zer and they, and it was they were going to make it illegal not to use them. So this has been interesting, and I think it goes back to it. The root is in free speech.
So, just to interrupt you there, so
yeah.
If we say the Germans are coming, that would be politically correct.
It would be if they were transgender Germans.
Correct. It's
as long as they were transgender, and as that is and they wanted to be known as the Germans. They wanted to be addressed in that way.
So it looks like you got some backs up there. There was a few Z people were coming.
He did it. He nearly lost his job. He got lots of. I don't think he got death threats per se, but he.
I thought he was tenured.
Yeah, but he got a lot of. They were going to discipline him, and there was lots of threats, professional threats internally from his university. That he said, and he said it really took a toll on him. He got very, very stressed out.
Well,
but
if you look at Pedersen on Islam, right, the picture next to that, down, he looks like he's doing it tough there. So the picture you just had there, see, he's got quite a few quotes, by the way. He's well quoted.
Yeah. Yeah, he's blown right up.
Yeah, the pronoun. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. Now, where would you stand? Just looking at that, where would you stand as far as being, as far as like, let's say, Jeremy Bentham versus Immanuel Kant?
I haven't read enough of him. I know who Kant is, and I know he was a pretty good Kant. But I don't know the other guy.
Let me just give you a really quick background. Okay, so Immanuel Kant, he believed in the categorical imperative, and he believed that you did things. There's either a right or wrong, and
Okay.
there's a right or wrong, and there's a way of living, and it's either right or wrong. And Jeremy Bentham believed in consequences, and so Kant believed in a categorical imperative, which was to live a life where your conscience told you it was right or wrong. You treat everybody equally. You treat everybody. You don't treat people as a means to an end to get what you want. You treat people as you would want them to treat you. So in a way, it was a little bit spiritual in that it's like a higher level of living where you gave to people through goodwill rather than expecting things in return. Where Jeremy Bentham was more about living through looking at happiness. So he was non-consequential, and Jeremy Bentham was always looking at, well, what happiness could that bring? What can that do to our well-being? How many units of happiness versus units of bad units would that cause? So yeah, so
I think I would lean towards the latter. Based on what you said, and then reading here, for Kant, a right action consists solely in an action that is ruled and justified by a rule or principle. Oh, crikey!
Yeah, sorry about that.
That was easy for you to say. I don't know. I might have some medicine that can help you out with that, mate. Anyway.
There we go. So yeah, so with Immanuel Kant, to live this the deontological ethics. So he's
what's that? Deontological.
Well, that means the deon is that goes back to Greek.
Yeah. Deontological.
Now I've just got a little thing up here. So yeah, so deontological ethical theory, which means it's based on the idea that there are certain objective ethical rules in the world. So deon is like a duty. So so let's say, for example, lying. Let me give you an example. Okay. We both agree that lying is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like if I lied to you and told you a straight lie, that's wrong. I'm in the wrong, right?
Yeah.
But so let's say Immanuel Kant would say that's wrong to lie. We can all agree I wouldn't want you to lie to me, so I'm not going to lie to you. Lying is wrong. But Jeremy Bentham would say, if I lied to you, but there was a good consequence by me saying that lie, then that would be better for me to lie than to tell you the truth.
Oh.
So it's always thinking about, but
so that's like relative.
Say, no, even if it was something better if it all worked out well and everything worked out better, it's not right because it's based on a lie.
So what about a mother or a father who...
So lying is wrong. So even if something better comes for you, comes for everyone, everything's good, it's wrong. So you don't lie. So if you want to live a perfect life, a good life, so it's got no, it's not about what consequences.
Okay. I'd think I'd still go with the consequences. So I guess so for example, let's say a kid It was in the movie Royal Tenenbaums where the dad. Ouch. Ouch. So you were talking about Kant?
So the thing is with Kant and being honest is you can really hurt people by being honest and being you know and doing everything living is like a perfect life where you don't do anything but I think, look, it's good to be able to listen to your conscience. This is one thing, and your conscience will tell you if something's right or wrong.
Mm.
That's the most important part of Kant's theories that I take.
Yep.
You should, we all have morals, and you know what? Some people really push. They really push the envelope. They'll say, "Oh, what's morally right for you may not be morally right for me." So, for example, if you're from a working class background and you think, "Hey, this big department stores, or rich department stores, these people are not going to miss me going in there and stealing their things." I'm talking about lying and stealing. Hey, I've got no money. They've got an abundance of money. I should go in there. I should be able to steal that. I'm stealing from the rich and I'm helping poor people. I might help my friends as well. Then that's a just life. So if you speak to some people in a criminal world, that is morally correct.
Robin Hood.
If you live the Robin Hood lifestyle. So can I say, it's Immanuel Kant would say that is wrong. That is, if you steal, stealing is wrong.
Mm.
That's unethical. That is not right. But if you've got to survive and you've got to look after your family and you've got people that you're helping and you've got to feed people and so on, then you're going to have to live outside of this perfect world, where you've got to be able to survive. Your people rely on you. So you've got to, sometimes you may have to lie, cheat and steal to get by. It's, we nobody wants to. Everybody would love to live a perfect life like Immanuel Kant, but sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to in order to get by. It's
I saw that firsthand in Philippines when I went over to Philippines and was doing some feeding in the homeless slums, all the slums there. Well, they weren't homeless actually; they actually built homes there. But I remember thinking these guys just have nothing. They don't even have a toilet. I think they had a shower. But I remember thinking, if they're living like this, then pickpocketing and a life of crime it's hard to say it's immoral. For me, that's what I remember thinking. I can't look at these kids and go, well, I mean, I didn't like them saying that it was the parents or the adults, like it was in that movie Slumdog Millionaire. And I remember my dad told me that. I remember I saw this guy in Shanghai and he had no arms. And he was begging for money. And I remember walking past and he's got no arms. And I remember looking, going, no shirt on. And I'm going like, is this a trick? I thought he was, and I'm thinking, how's he going to chase you if you just took his money? He's got no arms. And I thought it was a bit of a joke. But yeah, no. And then I went back, gave him money. And then later on, I remember telling my dad this story and Dad said, oh yeah, well, maybe his parents chopped his arms off and turned him into this money-making machine. And I remember I got physically, not physically sick, but I felt really sick and I got emotional. I was really sad. I couldn't believe it that a parent would do that to their kids. But so that kind of thing, I mean, that seems extreme no matter the level of the poverty. Because I did see with people that don't have much, they tend to pull together. But so I didn't like that kind of thing, like the adults pimping out the kids, so to speak, to do their bidding, where those adults could have done it themselves. Perhaps they wouldn't have made so much money because, you know, you're more likely to give money to a kid rather than an adult asking for money. But, you know, they could probably do some other kind of work. So I didn't like that bit. But I remember thinking, geez, it's hard to condemn them. It's really hard to say they're bad people when they've got nothing. They're pooping on the, you know, on the riverbank, and yeah, they were so happy to see us and would play with them, and I'd teach them a bit of English and stuff, and they were generally grateful and happy. But yeah, there was a few pickpockets in them, and they said it was sad though. I remember the kids that were crims that were, you could see they did a lot of street crime, but mostly it was just pickpocketing. What they had was little razor blades, and they used to cut your back pocket of your jeans, your wallet pocket. They'd cut the pocket and take the wallet out. They'd sneak up behind them, and I never saw it, but I had heard of it happening. So yeah, they all had these little blades, and I remember thinking, what are they doing with them? But yeah, that was their tools of trade. But I remember, yeah, the pickpocketers, especially the ones that have been doing it for a few years, that were a little bit older, you see they had that hard edge to them, and they weren't as happy kids as the young ones who perhaps weren't doing that or didn't have to do it. They seemed more joyful. But yeah, I think after you tell me about those two different philosophies, would you say that out of all these different philosophies, that you can take a little bit of each of them and there's a bit of truth that you can probably make a super philosophy out of them all? Like, because I'm thinking I like both. I like Kant's that, you know, you've got to listen to your conscience, and there's right and there's wrong, and you just keep doing right. But also, like, have a think about how your behavior, what's the consequences of your behavior, which was the other side. What's his name? What was his name?
Jeremy Bentham. He looks.
Yeah. So I think we should look at both sides in that. You should look at what is right and wrong, and trust and listen to your conscience, and what is the rule and principle, and then test those rules, but also entertain them. But then also look at what is the consequences, even if you do apply that rule. Like you're saying, don't be rude, and there's ways to go about it tactfully, but also we have to be careful that dogma and rules cannot apply throughout time. They should evolve, and we test them by consequences.
Yeah. So Jeremy Bentham spoke about utilitarianism, and he used it as a units of happiness. So the more units of happiness, so if you had a decision to make, the more units of happiness that something would give, then you do that. So, for example, there was a movie called Schindler's List.
Oh,
and
good movie.
there's a scene in it, and it has and this was something that the Nazis, Z-Nazis, as we were saying before, what the Nazis would do was they'd get in the movie, there's a scene, there's no word spoken, but they use this where they get a rabbi, put a gun in his hand and tell him to shoot. So, and they gather 20 people. They gather 20 people together, right? And they get another guy, and none of them know each other, right? None of them know each other. And he says to the rabbi, you've got to shoot and kill and like murder this one person. And if you don't do that, if you shoot and murder him, then we'll let these 20 other people, these 20 other Jewish people, we'll let them all go. But if you don't shoot that so if you shoot that person, they'll all go. If you don't shoot that person, we've got all guns and we'll just execute all of them. So either you shoot them and become a murderer, or you don't shoot that one person, or you don't shoot them and we'll murder 20 people. So it's up to you. So if Immanuel Kant would say, that's not me committing murder, I wouldn't shoot the person, you're shooting them, that's your choice.
So he would say that
But
shooting the person is the wrong thing to do.
wrong.
He would say sacrifice them because it's not me. Okay.
That's right. So he's not a murderer and he's living the ideal life. But but a utilitarian would say you're saving 20 people's lives, so you're giving one life in order to save 20. So
Yeah,
that's
and
the right decision to do. That's 20 units of happiness versus 1 unit of unhappiness. So
yeah,
21, there you go. There's your decision.
and I'd say it's quite heroic by shooting that person. I mean, sorry, mate, whoever's getting shot, but by shooting that person, he's got to live with that fact that he is a murderer. If he does live for the rest of his life, he'll know that he killed someone. 2, he probably saved 20, but like he'll have to live with that for the rest of his life.
That's the test that Germans did, and they also did it on parents.
So it's true. That's a true story.
This is a famous study. They also got like family members, and they said, right, what would you do? Would you shoot your own child or 4 cousins, or your own child or 4 nieces and nephews? You know, like, so they tried to value how much value is your own child compared to, you know, like distant relatives, you know, like how much so they did all these type of tests. Germans are famous for doing those unethical tests, weren't they?
Yeah, I did hear about that. That's, I think, one of the reasons why German is spoken in the medical field in Japan, because of the advanced testing they did on humans from World War II, and also those 2 countries were in bed together. So there's a lot that's I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that's one of the reasons why they say that they speak German in the medical field. But that's another reason with Peterson. I mean, Peterson's frightening, and some of the stuff he's written, because he's studied. That's one of his big things. He said that think about this, and he thought about himself first. He goes, there is an overwhelming probability that everyone would have become an Auschwitz guard or became a Nazi in Germany, because it's, you know, most people say, oh, like, not me, I would have helped the oppressed. No, it was about 9 out of 10 people. There was not many people that resisted Hitler and Nazism. And these are even people, because that's the other thing he said, propaganda. He said propaganda doesn't work for people over about 22. Once you get into your 20s, it's like, that's just rhetoric. That's crap. Propaganda is actually for young people to bring them in, to indoctrinate them. Teenagers as well. But so he said that, you know, everybody has the capability to be a Nazi in us and also enjoy it. That's what he said. Like, he goes really into dark things because he studied a lot of Jung and Nietzsche and Crime and Punishment, the Russian dude, and yeah, that's what's really made me vigilant and maybe really think about, wow, you know, there's a good chance that even though I think I'm, you know, this leftish, bleeding heart, care about my other people, not just my family and myself, but there's a 9 out of 10 chance that when push came to shove, that we would all become Nazis, or most of us would become Nazis and enjoy it. That's the other thing too. Is like, we've got that malevolence, and that's where Jung goes in about the shadow and the fully. We were talking about yesterday. Being fully integrated is about embracing the monster inside, especially men, and the men that lead are the ones that, you know, damn well, like a Joe Rogan, they could do some damage. Like, you know, these people, but they've integrated that monster and that violent capability in and embraced it and gone, okay, that's part of me, and not repressed it. And that's part of the journey of becoming enlightened. embracing your inner monster.
Just to add something there as well. It's called teleology if you work on consequences. So if you're like Immanuel Kant, deontology, the opposite of that would be teleology, which is working on the units of happiness. Now, there's two areas within that. One is a utilitarian, which a utilitarian will look at units of happiness for the greatest amount of people. So in that example that I gave you, do you compare one person versus 20? Right?
Yep.
Now, there's also within the same area of teleology, there's called egoism. So some people, egoism.
Oh yeah, egoism.
So there's a utilitarian that will look at the greatest number of the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest amount of people, or an egoist who looks for the great amount of happiness for themselves. So you may be a person who works for a boss who could do the wrong thing by everyone in the company, but their job is okay, or they're making money, so they're happy. They don't care what they don't care. So there's two sides of that equation. So you've got a utilitarianism who looks at the greatest number of happiness for the greatest number of people, and then you have the egoist who's thinking of the consequences to themselves. And where this person's very difficult is sometimes they'll look like they're sacrificing themselves, but the long-term goal is they've only got themselves. They're only thinking of themselves. So let me give you an example. I may work with you. So if I'm working with you, I might say, do you know what? I'll help you. I'll do your overtime work for you. And do you know what I'll do? I'll do your overtime work all this week. And you think, wow, this guy, Tony, he's fantastic. But really, I've got a big plan. I want to take a 6-week holiday and I've got a bigger goal. And once I've done your overtime work for 2 or 3 nights, you're going to start thinking, wait a second, we're buddies. And then I turn around and say, oh, I want to go on holidays. Do you mind? Can you help me out? Straight after I've just helped you out for 2 or 3 nights. So really there was a big goal that I had, but I may not have said that, but I had this intention all along. This is something an egoist would do. Somebody that's only thinking of themselves. So sometimes they sacrifice in the short term to get what they want in the long term. They're always thinking of themselves, the greatest units of happiness for themselves. Where Immanuel Kant, he wouldn't do that. He would say, I will only give to you because I want to give to you and I do it out of goodwill. I'm not expecting anything in return. So you can see how there's a difference there.
Yeah, I see. There's nobility in Kant's philosophy there.
There is, but the thing to remember, this is the point to remember. So I'm not saying one way or the other way is good or bad or right or wrong. The point to remember is what helps me is that I understand. What it means is I understand the action that's happening. So sometimes when I'm unethical about my decisions that I've done, and if somebody doesn't, I'm like, oh, okay, I've acted ethically and I've helped somebody, and then they haven't helped me back. Well, I shouldn't think, I help somebody get a job and then they turn around and badmouth me once I got the job or something like that. I shouldn't feel upset about that because, hey, if that's, I didn't give them that job because I was looking for something back. Do you know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't think that way. So if they're doing that, they've got their own agenda.
Gotcha.
So so what it helps you do is it helps you to identify things. You're like, oh, okay, this guy, you know, if a decision at work doesn't go your way, you're thinking, oh, okay, this guy's just thinking like a utilitarian. He's just trying to make a big group of people happy. Or this guy has said no to me, or this woman said no to me. It's because they're only interested in their own well-being. That doesn't bring them any happiness. That's not good for them. They're not going to help me. They're only interested in themselves. And once you can identify what people's motives are, then you don't feel so personal. It's not you. It's not, they haven't said no to you because it's you. They've said no to you because they're not getting what they want in return. They're not helping you because they're only interested in themselves.
Gotcha.
So you don't take it so personally then. It's
Yep.
not like, hey, it's me. How could you do this to me?
Mm.
I'm a good guy. I'm working really hard and you're not helping me.
Yep.
It's like, of course not. They're only helping themselves, and you've got nothing to offer them. So don't take it personally. You know, then that's part of life. That's how you work. You know, if you want someone to work for you, if you want people to do things for you, you can't just manipulate them by saying, look, here, I've given you a little bit. I've given you a few crumbs. I want the cake off you. You can't expect people to do that. If you want to help people, that's your choice. You help them. You know, you don't have to expect anything back. If you help somebody, just help them. If you don't want anything, if you help somebody because you want something back and you don't get it and you get angry, then just simple, learn your lesson. Don't that person again. You know, unless you really want to help that person because that makes you happy helping them, then don't help them anymore. You know, you don't have to, unless you're Gandhi, unless you want to help the world, unless you're the kind of person that wants to be the giver to everyone and doesn't want anything back. If you're going to be an Immanuel Kant, then live that life. But if you're not, if you're really interested in your own self and you're only interested in your own well-being, which is natural because we're human, then that's how you should think, you know. And it helps you to become aware, and just that's the way that, you know, mankind is. Another guy is Peter Singer. Is another utilitarian like Jeremy Bentham, and he's from Melbourne, and he's considered the world's most dangerous academic.
What's his name? Let's have a look at this guy.
Peter Singer.
Oh, that's Peter Allen. I was thinking, when my baby. When my baby.
I go to Rio. And
go to Rio.
Peter Allen, fantastic. The boy from Oz. Well, this is another boy from Oz, and he's actually from Melbourne, and he went to Melbourne. He's been all over the world, and he's considered dangerous because of his theories of utilitarianism and about the greatest, like making the greatest number of people happy. You know, and these are the things is, you know, if you're going to look at the greatest number of people and hopefully make them happy, then you got to, sometimes you've got to kill one to help 20, you know, that theory.
Yeah.
So he's Peter Singer, really interesting guy.
All right, mate. I'm getting a bit, should we wrap it up? Wrap it up on Peter Singer. I might have a little bit of. I'm gonna check out Peter Singer and
pick it up again next week.
Sounds great, mate. Thanks for teaching me about Kant. I've known him. I've known his name for a while. I sometimes invoke him.
Yeah.
Perhaps I take his name in vain every now and again, but I have heard of him. I just didn't know.
Maybe you mistook him for the guy who cut you off in traffic. Was that Immanuel Kant?
Was that Immanuel? Immanuel Kant wouldn't do that. What you just did. you were, and it wasn't very utilitarian either. Yep. Yeah, egoist.
People are not happy here. Yeah. So anyway, ethical theory. I'll maybe I should look at that, and I've got a chart that I can show you.
Sweet.
I could look at that and show you a little bit about ethical theory, and that's something that changed my life, and it helped me to look at the world differently and start thinking, wait a second, it's not so personal. This helped me to look at things. There's a right and wrong way to look at things. There's another way of looking at it. It's about making the greatest number of people happy, and then there's just making good old number one, looking after yourself.
Yeah.
And so there's different times you've got to think of the those three in your position, where you are, and you know, where you are in life, and you know, it might be easy to say, hey, I want to be a good guy and live like Immanuel Kant, but if you're in the Philippines and you've got no arms, hey, good luck living that life, you know.
That's it. Oh, thanks, mate. That's good. That's food for thought. I'd love to talk about that when your chart and then how your story too. So let's pick that up next week.
I actually teach that in English as an international language. So
Right.
let's get back to that next time. Sweet, Tone.
So,
Thanks,
mate.
mate.
Cool.